Welcome to the show. I'm Evan Mulch. I'm the tactical strategist of United Patriots Alliance. Today, we're revisiting a piece that hit a nerve when it was first published. It's called Let's Get Real, the real reason the SCGOP is controlled. It's a deep dive into the 2025 SCGOP convention chaos, the consultant class running both sides of the ballot, and why primary season has become the party's biggest payday. If you missed it the first time or you need a refresher, today's the day. I'm joined by the woman who wrote it, Elena Moore, the president of Palmetto State Watch and a contributing writer for United Patriots Alliance. Welcome, Elena.
Thank you so much for having me on today, Evan.
Well, there was a lot of chaos in 2025. Of course, just recently there was chaos last Saturday at the 2026 convention. Let's dive deep into 2025 to remind people what happened, because 2025 really changed the game, because I think it destroyed momentum that Grassroots had in this state to where we had less of a force in 2026. So what happened in 2025?
Yeah, just a brief overview. The 2025 SCGOP convention was really gamed, like you said, before it even took place. The credentialing committee of the state voted 34-6 to not seat all 24 Pickens County delegates over a venue space dispute. I won't get into a lot of it, but you can read the majority of it in the article that goes into those details. And also, the Charleston and Darlington counties both faced challenges after allegedly switching to slate voting all of a sudden. Normally, what you would normally do is vote on people individually. Well, last minute, both counties, or at least the establishment of those counties, decided to vote by slate, saying, "Hey, we have all of this long list of people that is running. If you want to be part of the SCGOP slate, vote today," instead of voting individual delegate elections and reinstalling this, which voting the slate way was a lot quicker and reinstalled the same leadership.
Right. And it just became obvious to all of us watching what happened that this was intentionally done in Pickens County and in Charleston County and Darlington County, because the grassroots at that point was so close to taking back the state GOP. And they're worried. But why is every convention a circus? I mean, I've been hearing about this for years. My first GOP state convention was back in 2012, and I regretted even taking a friend to it, because he said he's never going to participate in Republican politics again after that event. I don't think he has since. Anyways, why is it always a circus?
We took a really long look at it, and it really does seem that every state GOP convention is the same way. It comes with chaos, threats, and authoritarian form of ruling that is becoming more present than ever, honestly. They run through the script. Leadership does of the SCGOP. You literally watch them walk around with scripts that are highlighted on high speed all day while delegates are left out of the loop and attempt to use Robert Rules of Order to get more information. But a lot of times, the SCGOP, they've already picked their president who's going to rule as the parliamentarian, and it doesn't usually go the way of anybody else but the script all of a sudden. And so they usually do not take kindly to people going off of script. They have already had their predetermined outcomes on that script, and it almost always goes according to plan.
But this is South Carolina. We're nice here. We're the ones, isn't this supposed to be a red state?
That's what they say until you're sitting in the back of one of these GOP conventions and you watch as the uh, chairman of the SCGOP and the temporary president they have installed over a very quick vote with green and red sheets. They all start screaming everybody down, and if a delegate who wants to ask a question or to offer up an amendment that is not on the script, they will go up to the mic and immediately usually get shot down and yelled at by not only the leadership but also the leadership's groupies.
Right, right. And the conservative counties are always seated in the back, right?
Yeah, it does seem that way. Anyone that doesn't agree with the current leadership or establishment, The room is always organized by putting the counties who may not be in agreement all the way in the back. And even if they aren't in agreement, let's say they don't disagree with the current leadership. We've seen this a few times. They don't disagree with the current leadership, but they don't completely align with leadership. They're also stuck in the back. So basically, if you are not a full-fledged supporter of the establishment and the current leadership, you get put in the corner.
So why are they doing this? I mean, that's really the big question. Why it's obvious to so many how it actually happens, and after it's over with, I'm like, I don't want to be friends with the guys in charge of the South Carolina GOP because I don't like the way they behave. But why do they go to such efforts to keep control of the GOP?
A lot of people ask that question, and it's a lot more simple than I think people realize. It's because the SC this is a cash cow for everyone in power. Primary season is the reason why they keep the leadership keeps it as controlled as they do. My question is, have you ever noticed how many leaders of the South Carolina Republican Party are actually GOP consultants? Because that means they're getting their paychecks from running Republican campaigns. The legislators get elected the same way because they are buddies with people who are running their campaigns, who are helping run the primary and have access to voter information. It always comes down to the money, and it comes down to information.
I know that former GOP chairmans such as Drew McKissick and Chad Conley, they make money off of campaigns. Does Drew McKissick make money off of campaigns currently as a consultant?
Yeah, he does. He also has his own consulting company.
How is that even ethical in any way?
It's a great question. It doesn't feel really ethical, but the problem is with the Republican Party, it functions in this gray area of a public-private partnership in a way. They're codified in state law, yet they're also supposed to be a private club. Yet the government gives or runs elections for them, basically kind of funnels money in a way to run elections for them, yet they get to make decisions as if they're a private entity. So it's a really weird situation. That's why it acts the Republican Party acts as the Wild West, and it feels like the Wild West because there are no governing laws, and they can govern as they say in their own bylaws by the spirit of the law, not the word of the law.
So, according to your article, I guess the key to being part of the big boys table is to compromise, right?
It does seem that way. I mean, the only way to get anything done is working together. And we must come together for unity. That was something that's at every SCGOP convention is hammered down, that we must have unity. Now that we've wiped you in the primary, you must come together and support our people so we can beat the big bad Democrats in November.
Right, and knock on doors for the next few months for people who cheated and basically lied to you the previous months, right?
Exactly.
So, in your article, you included that patriot Anna Heron, who had she'd written an article for Palmetto State Watch, and she included a convention method that not many people know about. She wants this convention method to come back in style because I guess up until the early 1980s, we were using the convention method. And then the South Carolina GOP got the government funding and started using the primary method, right?
Pretty much, yeah. She released this article, Anna did, back March of 2025, and it talked about returning to the convention method instead of the primaries. Because, a lot of times we hear, oh, we need closed primaries. But the thing is, our code of law, the South Carolina Code of Law, already gives a way for the two party system or for parties to close their primaries. And they give them two options. Either you can have an open primary like we have right now, or you can go to the convention method, which would be the party itself convening together at these conventions and voting on who is their nominee in November. This is how all other parties in South Carolina, any third parties, That's how they work. Only Democrats and Republicans are codified to where they're having the government run elections for them in the primaries.
And if you go to a convention, you're actually required to get educated because the candidates are there or the candidates' representatives are there, and they speak at these conventions. And before you vote, you actually know who you're voting for in a way. And I know the state of Iowa has done a great job doing it for their elections, and I've actually experienced that. I experienced that back in 2012. But uh, what do you think stopping the state of South Carolina, the GOP here, from going back to this old method of doing conventions?
It's money. This would cut off their money. This would cut off how they make their livelihood. This would cut off how they hold their position in the party. Because if this happened, and and I'll go ahead and say this, when this article was released, this was just something Anna had been researching. She got really passionate about. When she brought the idea to me, I said, that sounds great. You might get some pushback for this because I know it's a big deal, but you're just you're talking about this is like a philosophical argument, an article. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. Immediately when we released it, the SCGOP blasted statewide texts and emails attacking the piece, attacking us, attacking Anna, and framing it as a way to attempt to silence voters. I have never seen the GOP act so fast in my entire life. They've been talking about closing the primaries for what, 15, 20 years now. And all of a sudden, some idea comes out and they are white on rice when it comes to making sure that they push against this because this is going to be silencing voters. But it really makes you wonder because the whole primary system, it relies on buying votes at this point. Our voter base is not educated. I mean, the most educated you're getting is people that watch Fox News and CNN. Obviously, our followers and the people that are listening to things like this, they are outside of that trajectory. They kind of are more educated than the vast majority. So what you're looking at is a field that you have to purchase. If you can't purchase the election, then you have no sway in ever getting a seat. But if you have a ton of money, if you have millions of dollars to be pumping ads, sending mailers, talking to those people, or just sending information, whether it's true or not, to the people who are going to go out and vote and just vote Republican, that's really all you have to look at. So, there's the people that just vote.
And you don't just have to have the money. You have to. I mean, I've recently experienced this watching Lindsey Graham's campaign. The campaign that he ran was extremely dirty, and look at the PACs that surrounded Lindsey Graham. And so, it's not just about money. The primary season gets to be very filthy, and the convention method would actually reduce the. I believe it would. It would reduce the amount of uh, unpleasantness in the campaign cycle. Well, at least for us that are
It
wanting
would,
a
and I think it
good
would
state
hold
government
people
for right.
right. It would hold people accountable for their actions because at the people that are involved in their party are people who have stake involved. And when you have stake involved, you're going to be much more, I guess, you'll have a little bit more integrity. You'll care more than maybe many voters who just vote once every 4 years as Republican. And it'll be harder to play these kinds of games. Will these games be played still? Absolutely. Of course they will. That's politics. But it creates more accountability to the people who actually care and are involved with the Republican Party.
Right, and I think a lot more good South Carolinians would actually stick with participating rather than dropping out once they see how the circus takes place. The convention sort of reduces the convention method reduces the circus. So
Hmm.
what what can the grassroots do? I mean, I guess the grassroots has its own problems, right? What are those problems?
Well, the two things that I have seen over the past several years is that the grassroots um, have too much ego and they lack strategy. It really comes down to that. With their ego, there's a lot of self styled leaders who turn just a couple of petty disagreements into factional wars. You'll see these factions all across South Carolina, people that don't want to work together, who both hate, that all hate the current leadership in the SCGOP. But because they have this one tiny little disagreement, or they think, oh my gosh, somebody's getting money from somebody, it turns into an all out war, and then you're left in the spot of, okay, well, which one's better, the leadership or the little disagreement you have over here, or the petty argument. The other one is strategy. There's a huge lack of strategy in the grassroots. They're reactive, rather than proactive, and we can see this even in legislative season, where they're reactive to stopping bad bills, but they're not proactive, as in electing better people and fixing the causes. Why is it like this? And a lot of times it becomes like that because you're being hit with a tsunami. So, of course, you're going to be more reactive to things. You have to figure out which fires you're putting out first, but you can't live in the reactive space for years on end. You have to figure out a way to overcome it and become proactive.
Right. And very few people understand the private club loophole, right? It's
Hmm.
you touched on
Yeah.
it a little bit earlier, but touch on that again.
Yeah, so the private club loophole is, what we were discussing with that gray area that the Republican and Democrat Party both operate in. Both of those parties take public money to run primaries, but they're still legally treated as private clubs, and that shields them from government agency level accountability. For example, you could not FOIA certain things of how elections are done, or how the Republican consultants interacted with the a certain uh, precinct, election precinct, or something like that. How much money that was funneled through from one consultant to another. They act as government officials in a way, yet there's no transparency. And there is a huge parallel that I have noticed with our government. Our government has all of a sudden started creating a lot of public private partnerships with nonprofits. So instead of having a government agency saying, hey, public health organization, we want you to go out into the churches and talk to the pastors about why it's so important to be vaccinated. No, instead, we're going to give money and grants to a nonprofit in that area, so the nonprofit can go into the churches and talk about how important it is to get vaccinated. And that way, we have a clean trace. The government loves paying and contracting out their dirty work. And that's the same way that we're seeing with the SCGOP. They're dodging that same accountability, that same transparency, because a nonprofit at the end of the day, or a private club, does not have the same transparency level accountability that a government agency does. We can't FOIA them, we can't get documents, we can't look at their finances, and it goes on and on and on.
Yeah. Well, that's it's hard to believe it's got this bad, but you have a couple of fixes you'd like to do, or you have two options you'd like to propose to the South Carolinian people about how we can fix this, right?
Yeah, definitely. And after doing all of this research, talking to several different people, talking to our team, two options seem to come out that would fix this problem. The first one would be to codify the parties as public government entities. I mean, at this point, we've got to fix the issue of whether or not they're private or public. So one of the two needs to happen. Either we, the first option, codify the parties, make them government entities so that they work within the same regulations a government agency would. Or the second option is to cut them off from public funding entirely. I personally think this is the best option. You would cut them off from public funding. They would either hold their own elections through their own money or go to the convention method. And that way, if they want to do snaky, weird things, then they're going to have to report to their base for it. And their base is going to handle that. But our taxpayer money should not be going to hold elections for a two-party system. We wonder why those two parties stay in power the entire time. That's really why. So, what it does with these options is it brings in the founders, and how the founders wanted us as Americans to work in the party system.
Right. George Washington was very clear in his farewell address. He said, and he's referring to political parties. However, political parties may now and then answer popular ends. They are likely, in the course of time and things, to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust dominion. And it just, by reading that, it looks, it seems like he saw the future for what was going to happen, not just in South Carolina, but in other states as well. What a great warning. We should definitely heed to that warning today.
Absolutely. And that's what he talked about in his farewell address. And I think one of the problems, the reason we are where we're at, is because we have failed to look at the guidance of our founding fathers and the pieces of wisdom they gave us, just like it with the party system.
Okay, so the power needs to go back to the grassroots, and we need state representatives and state senators to do the right thing, right? Are there any state representatives that come to mind when you think of one that does the right thing all the time?
Rob Harris, Representative Rob Harris in Spartanburg. He is a stalwart of conservatism and for what is right, and he votes no when it's not popular. And when everyone's against him and he's the only one voting no. I mean, he is really the ideal legislator to have.
And he currently has a 100% on the New American Freedom Index, and that's an index where the people at the New American, the John Birch Society, they grade certain votes that are taking place in the South Carolina State Legislature. And each time they do a report, Rob Harris comes back with 100%. So we need more like him. What's the call to action here?
It's really simple, and I know people aren't going to take it as simple, but it really is this simple. We just need people. We have to get people to think critically rather than repeating party talking points. I saw this so much in this past primary election where people are relying on what campaigns are telling them, or they're relying on trusted individuals are telling them, rather than actually looking at what's going on and and thinking critically. I mean, we really have to do that. We have to get people to think critically rather than just repeating whatever they're told. It is that simple. And I hear it a lot of times where people, I get comments on my articles. They say, well, just tell us who to vote for. Why are you telling us, who's receiving money and how, and how the things work in the inside baseball? Because it is not my job to tell you who to vote for. Everybody's telling you who to vote for. My job is to give you information and say, here is all of this background on all of these candidates. You decide, because that's why you have a vote. You don't have a vote just so someone else can tell you how to vote. You have a vote so you can make a critical, good decision based off of the facts in order to preserve our republic. And you know what? It took a lot of energy and it took a lot of work and many, many years of bloody battles to create the republic we have. I think you can take 30 minutes out of your day to do a little cursory search on the people that are running.
Right. It really is an astounding problem we have in America right now, where people just want to go to the ballot box and vote, and they don't want to think critically. They just want to watch their Fox News or whatever it is, or radio program. And I can't even I can hardly listen to conservative talk radio or even turn the TV on to watch the news, because I know it's propaganda right from the very start. And to think that some people are still not thinking critically enough to see through it, it's hard to believe, especially in the age of having the internet at our fingertips, right? Yeah, it is. Well, thank you so much, Elena, for all of your hard work, and I'm glad we revisited this article from 2025. And from all of us here at United Patriots Alliance News, thank you for watching. Please make sure to subscribe to our channel and share this video, and visit our news page on UnitedPatriotsAlliance.com. Go Max for Charlie. We'll see you next time.